any today? Thank you. I'll take those as approved. Deputies, can we give a very warm welcome to Rabbi David Meyer, the CEO of Pages, the Partnership for Jewish Schools, who's come to speak to us today, and he's also on the board of Ofsted, which I think is a huge achievement. Welcome. So Rabbi Meyer has very kindly offered to speak for 10 minutes, and he will be able to take some questions. So if they are too extensive, I'm going to apologise that if there isn't time. But thank you so much for both of you coming today. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Marie, for inviting us. It is a great honour to be here. I should introduce my colleague, Susie Stone. She is a trustee of Pages and also works closely with us with regards to the developments of leadership, which she'll talk about in a couple of minutes. Very, very quick elevator pitch of what Pages does. So basically, we have 3 pillars within the organisation. One is education, one is leadership, and the third is public affairs. And so perhaps if I could just talk for a couple of minutes about each one of those areas. So first of all, with regards to education, we need to recognise, just to give you an idea, there are approximately 130 Jewish schools, 40,000 students in Jewish education across the country. And that goes across the full spectrum, if you want, from pluralistic and cross-communal schools all the way across to Haredi schools. And Pages endeavours to work with the vast majority of those. I think we have a close contact with about 90 of the schools. And we work with them obviously in different areas. So with regards to the education, our role is very much to support the delivery of Jewish studies and the teaching of Ivrit, modern Hebrew, in schools. We have curriculum that we have developed in order to support the schools, and we'll work with teachers in running CPD, that's continuing professional development, in schools and at Pages in order to be able to support those areas. With regards to leadership, I'm actually going to hand over to Susie, who will tell you a little bit about the work that we do there.
So a high priority for our schools is the sustainability of the highest quality of provision, both religious and secular education. And for that, we need the best possible recruitment and retention. So Pages offers support at different levels of leadership. The first is through our Jewish Schools Leadership Programme, which is a partnership with the Ambition Institute. They deliver government-funded leadership training for middle and senior leaders and aspiring head teachers. And we add to that the training for leading Jewishly. Our new heads, we support them through appointment to their crucial first years in post, to try and ensure that they stay with us. And that support is in the form of coaching, mentoring, and most importantly, bespoke support. We do a needs analysis and then we put in the support that they need. We then offer ongoing support to all our heads, as Rabbi Meyer said, right across the spectrum. We offer networking, we offer briefings, we offer a lot of bespoke support, and importantly, a 2-day annual conference where heads come out of school to network and to learn from very high quality speakers and presenters. And that's going to happen this year in January.
Thank you very much. Just before I start to talk about the public affairs work, I think it's important to just spend a couple of minutes talking about well-being in our schools. As I'm sure everybody appreciates, this is a very big area. It has blown up, obviously, since COVID, and to be honest, was a key area of focus. In fact, in Pages, we had started working on this about 6 years ago, well before that was common across other schools. And it was highlighted by how teachers is an important area to work in. In fact, the Jewish Leadership Council led an important pilot, which has now been taken by Pages and is going to be embedded within the school improvement work that we do, in order to be able to try and ensure that there are going to be initiatives in well-being in schools, in Jewish schools across the UK. And I'm very pleased to say that that now is during the transition period, but from January will be fully embedded within the work that Pages does supporting in schools. So the third area that we work on, which I think is an important pillar, is the work with regards to public affairs. And I'm pleased to say that in this regard, we've always worked very closely with the Board of Deputies. And what we have tried to do is to act as an honest broker between Jewish schools and the Department of Education, Ofsted, the Regional Schools Commissioners, and indeed 10 Downing Street. In this regard, I have to say that, in fact, my background was I was the executive head teacher of Husmandian High School. And during my time there, I found leadership was a very lonely position. In fact, it was the key reason why I moved into Pages, is that I just felt that there was a need to be able to work with other schools together. What I didn't realize was how important it was going to be for us to have a voice at governmental level. And as things have shifted and as policies have developed, I think that the relationship that we have developed with government and the way that we've been able to honestly engage with governmental bodies has really helped to ensure that that our schools can meet all the government requirements, and indeed that the government understands the needs and responsibilities of our schools as well.
Thank you very much, and thank you for everything that you do. We've got some questions and we'll try to have time. Joe Miller first, Deborah Cohen, and if we have time, Johnny Weinberg. Can you remember, please, to say your name and your constituency, and all the questions that I've got here are online. So if you want to get in the room, you'll have to be fast, but we may not have much time. Over to you, Joe.
Hi, Joe Miller. Thank you very much for, sorry, it's a bit of an echo. Thank you very much for coming to speak to us today. You sort of alluded to the issues in Jewish schools over the past couple of years around safeguarding and well-being of Jewish children.
We can't hear you. I'm really sorry. We can't hear you. If you write the question down, I'll come back to you. Can you write it down and send it to us by email, and I'll read it? But we can't hear you. I'll put it in the chat. Sorry. Oh, it's closed. We'll write it to the Chief Executive. I'm really sorry. Sorry. Deborah Cohen, you were next, and then Johnny Weinberg.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Sorry, it's quite difficult to unmute yourself. Size Square Synagogue. As the previous speaker started to say, there's been a lot in the press in the last couple of years about safeguarding.
I'm really sorry, Deborah. It's not your fault, Deborah or Joe.
Try again.
Try again. It's here that the problem is, not you. Apologies. Try again, Deborah.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Okay, we've found a way. Okay, please speak, and then I'll come back to Joe. Deborah.
Okay, yeah. So Deborah Cohen, Belsize Square Synagogue. There's, as the previous speaker started to say, a lot of attention given to safeguarding in the last few years. Safeguarding is a lot more than emotional well-being, as we know, connected into the local authority and safeguarding boards' responsibilities. What I want to know is what training and support is given to the governors of schools, because it seems to me from a number of cases that I've known about, I should declare that I chair two safeguarding adults boards, some close connected into the world of safeguarding. that there are some real deficiencies in the understanding of safeguarding responsibilities on the behalf of those governors who sit on schools. Do you provide any training? There will be a number of us on this call who may be governors. Local authorities also provide training. Do you actively encourage governors of Jewish schools to attend and participate in that training? Can you just say something about
thank
that?
you. I think that's an excellent question. I should say, and we should have mentioned this, that we run a very comprehensive program of training for governors and support for governors. In fact, it's probably one of the largest governor training networks in the country, where we run training for governors once a term in different areas. However, one of the things I should also mention is that Pages' role, in my view, is to supplement what is delivered by government, not to replace it. So I think we need to use our sources efficiently as possible. So certainly what we will be doing, and we do regularly, is to guide schools in accessing support that they can get from the local authority or government. And I think that safeguarding is a good area where there is lots of training available to schools. So we wouldn't replace that as opposed to encourage them to be accessing it.
Thank you. And if deputies can only spend 1.5 minutes asking questions up to that, because we're not going to get to everybody. Joe Miller, and apologies for before, please ask your question.
Hello. Hi, Joe Miller, Muswell Hill. Thank you very much for coming to speak to us today. I've got a similar question. Firstly, just be really clear sort of what we're talking. Can you hear me?
I'm so sorry, everyone. The sound is not good.
Can you hear me now?
I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry, Joe. I don't know if it's us here or you. We heard Deborah. If you want to write in your question, we'll take it offline. Johnny, can we try you? But we may have problems with the sound. I can only apologise.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. Thank you.
Well, I can't hear Johnny at all, and he's
okay. I am speaking.
Go on.
I am unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Speak
Okay,
as loud as you can, but yes.
Okay, so similar lines. We know that mental health is important in schools. So a couple of things.
No, we can't. Obviously, I'm really sorry.
Oh dear.
So just say that this reminds me of COVID lessons and.
Yeah, so I'm trying very hard, and it's around mental health and using professionals. So making sure that people are qualified, be it counsellors, therapists, and use of youth workers as well, because those are the people who should be brought into schools to do it. My concern is about.
Okay, all right, yeah, I'll do it. What must I? I'm Marie. Marie, apparently we've been kicked out the room. So can the room Zoom please reconnect?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they're on our website. There are contact details for our offices, and we have, and obviously there are lots of schools, but we definitely have, and I have worked closely with Mosaic in the past.
Thank you, and I'm very sorry, deputies have to put on their microphones because people in the rest of the room might not hear, and also online, although Rabbi Meyer can hear. Sheila.
Sheila Gewald, Cardiff United Synagogue. Good morning, Rabbi Meyer. Good to see you. I want to move slightly to a different area of your work. I do, with other deputies, do a lot of work with non-Jewish children in, outreach. And there's a shift away in the RE curriculum now to encompass world views. So can you explain if that's affected how Pages advise the curriculum in the faith schools, in Jewish faith schools, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have to say that Pages does not work outside of the Jewish school framework, but obviously we strongly encourage our schools to ensure that they are meeting all the standards that are required with regards to government guidelines. With regards to worldviews and generally with regards to differing religions, there is a requirement on schools to be teaching differing religions, and that is something that we support schools to do. I'm pleased to say that if you would look at Ofsted inspections recently across the country, across the full spectrum of Jewish schools, you will feel that that is generally something which is met. So I think that in general, our schools understand not just the importance of teaching it, but also the benefits for the students within our schools in learning those areas.
Can deputies please press your microphone? Please fill for the people online so that they can hear, because they're already disadvantaged. Judith, thank you.
Morning. I just wanted to ask you, I'm a retired PSHE coordinator working in Haringey. I was working in Haringey with the borough advisors. I just wanted to know what input you have into ensuring there is a proper SRE curriculum. Are you able to see in schools that it's not drop-down days, that it starts in year 7, progresses to year level? And I just wondered what ownership you'd have on that.
Yeah,
I think Joe is also, I'm from Muswell Hill. I think Joe also had a concern about that.
Okay, it's a fair question. I think the reality is that pages can't take responsibility for what each school is delivering. We certainly have run training sessions for schools in SRE. It's a very complicated area for schools, and it is one which I think honestly is going to be a process for our schools. There are some that have fully embraced it, some that understand the importance but haven't necessarily quite got to where we want them to be. But in general, we have got guidance for our schools online. We have had a number of sessions that we have run training everywhere from senior leaders to pastoral leaders with regards to this. And I would say that this is an area that generally as a community of schools, we have seen significant improvement over the last few years.
Thank you. Apologies to everybody and especially deputies online. We won't have this problem again. We'll make sure that we don't. I want to thank Rabbi Meyer, and going forward, if anyone's got any questions online, I think an email should be sent to all the deputies saying where the question can be sent, so that we find a way to read out your questions. And Rabbi Meyer, if the deputies that wanted to ask a question email us, is it possible that you might be able to tell us what you would have said, so that we'll feed back to you? So I'm really sorry, Joe, Johnny, Joy and Bora. If you send us your questions, Rabbi Meyer said he'll be pleased to give us the response. So apologies to you. Thank you so much.
Not at all. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies. The problem is definitely in the room, and I've just lost contact with my Wi-Fi again, so we obviously do have some issues, so we'll have to bear with it and do the best that we can. Michael's still connected. Last time the HOs weren't able to present their reports because we ran out of time, so this time they're going to give their reports before the President's statement. David Mendoza-Wolfson isn't here. He's already received written questions, so we'll have reports from the F&O division first, Community and Education division, although Edwin is online, which is going to now be problematical. Not that Edwin could have done anything about it. We don't have the vice chair here, so we'll see what questions there are and how we deal with that. And Amanda Bowman will be last. So over to you, Michael Ziff.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for all your support and help. In particular, I'd like to thank Sid Graham, who has been phenomenally helpful in getting me to learn the numbers and test me and do all those things to get going. And also the team at F&O, thank you all for your involvement at whatever level and everything that you're doing to help. I guess this is the occasion where I'm the poacher turned gamekeeper, so now I've got to sort of take a whole different view about accounts and not spend any money. You all have the report. I don't tend to go through reports that have been pre-presented. And I will take any questions that anybody has got, either in the room and hopefully from outside. Are there any questions anybody would like to ask?
Well, that's all very.
Yeah, there's somebody there. Sorry.
brilliant.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm James Harris, Stanmore Cannons Park United Synagogue. I know the HOs and various staff have been on international trips recently. I'm just wondering, has that been at a cost to the board, or has that been, funded from elsewhere, grants and so on? To what end in terms of cost?
I can tell you that most of the trips have been funded outside of the Board of Deputies. There are some odd trips that have been to our cost that were already within the budgets.
I think that was the trip to Basel in Switzerland was paid for by the board.
Partially
of
by the
Deputies.
board.
Partially, but everything else, to my knowledge, has been.
The Emirates was 100% covered by the Emirates.
Right. There's no more questions from within. How are we handling without, Michael?
People can email. I've sent a note. All deputies are getting email to email me personally with questions. My board email address: michael.weger, WEGIER@bod.org.uk.
Thank you. Sorry, it's not very satisfactory.
Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. Edwin won't be able to be heard
Let's try.
in the room. We can try, but there are a lot of people online who will be able to hear Edwin. So I hope that you can bear with it if you can't hear him, that he will speak, and that he will then be able to answer questions to people online, and that we give this opportunity.
Sorry, am I to speak now, or Marie? Marie, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Shall I speak? I'm waiting for a response. Yeah, okay. I said speak, Edwin.
Edwin, can you please just speak? We can't hear you properly in the room. We have a sound problem here, but
Yeah,
you can speak.
I will speak.
Deputies
Okay.
Online.
Thank you.
And Vicky Harris has a question for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So in presenting my report, I again inform you that Vice Chair Andrew Gilbert is running the division in my absence, which will I will be back, and please God, at the beginning of the year. But in the meantime, any questions on the report itself should be addressed. He's with us online. I just want to add two things. I want to add that a lot of work is being done under my presence on the Commission on Racial Inclusivity, and we should soon be announcing the appointment of a part-time employee exclusively for to coordinate the commission. We are meeting pages on the 7th of December in order to seal the formal education, and I will hoping to by the next meeting I will present a full report on the commission, on all these recommendations, when and how and the timeline, and please God we will be able to complete the task within this triennial. Second thing I want to mention is that the Board of Deputies organized, as part of Mizrahi Heritage Month, a fantastic, outstanding event at JW3. It was attended by many deputies, and I thank them for that. We honored David Dangour's work. We worked with Sephardi Voices. We had the presence of the ambassador of Israel. It was a most informative event that people actually have been complimenting us on it even till now. It was reported also in the Jewish News extensively. On the 30th of November is the day of the expulsion of Jews from Arab countries, and Harif is organizing the main event in the UK at JW3 on the 30th of November. That's Thursday. In addition to that, there are many other side events, and I will be also be addressing New York and Boston on the 30th of November. That's it. Then the rest of it, the report is in front of you, and any questions on the report, I will direct to Andrew. Otherwise, Vicky, I can hear you if you unmute. Vicky, can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. It's just 12 o'clock. Good afternoon, Edwin. However, my question was for Michael Ziff. I had my hand up at the time.
Okay.
So I must revert to Madam President and ask
Okay,
her
I'll let her know. I'll let her know
how she would like to deal with this.
Yeah.
So apologies to you, Edwin, and no offense.
Thank you. Well, it's nice to hear you, and we are in the same problem. So thank you, Vicky. I'll pass it on to her.
Thank you.
No, I was told that he did. Right, okay, I am really sorry. It's very unsatisfactory. I can only apologise to you, Edwin, and to everybody online, although you can hear, you online can hear, but in the room we can't, so apologies. Thank you. Can we move on, please, to the Defence Division? Amanda, can you present your report? And I hope that everybody online can hear you as us in the room. Can you put your microphone, please?
Good almost afternoon, deputies. The clock here says completely 12 o'clock, which is maybe auspicious. Anyway, since we last met, Ofcom announced their findings on the BBC coverage of the Hanukkah incident from November 2021, and announced that the BBC failed to observe its editorial guidelines on due partiality and due accuracy, and found it engaged in serious editorial misjudgment. Well, this might be seen as some kind of success in terms of the board's advocacy. It's certainly disappointing that earlier this year, the police closed the case in looking to identify the alleged perpetrators of the crime. And we were also more than disappointed that the CPS dropped the charges and closed the case on the convoy that came down to London in May 2021. What I can tell you is right now we are seeking meeting. We've been offered a meeting with the CPS, and we continue to meet with the police. We're working alongside our communal partners with the police and the CPS, and doing all in our powers to defend the community, and to make sure that the processes that take place are improved so that these kinds of things don't happen again. I also wanted to touch on the recent trip that Michael Eager and I had to Abu Dhabi that James may have been referring to earlier. As Michael said, it was completely funded by the Emiratis. And what was a historic first trip for the Chief Rabbi was also the first official trip by the Board of Deputies, and I was honoured to represent you as the Vice President there. It was a completely stimulating 3 days at a conference with over 1,000 people, 70 countries represented, and a good number of people in a delegation from the UK, to allow us to build some strong relationships in order to build some innovative and worthwhile partnerships as we go forward. And so, as I say, I was honoured to do that, but also to help pursue our interfaith agenda. And with that, you have seen my report, and so
come off Wi-Fi and log out. I'm told that might solve the problem. And our system for people online asking questions is working because Michael Wigger will read out a question from Richard Sassoon, who's offline. So if everyone could try logging out, and we'll see if that helps.
Okay, question from Richard Sassoon to Amanda. 2 weeks ago, an independent member review committee of Conservative Party HQ dismissed an appeal by 4 Hertsmere Conservative councillors and their election agents for having engaged in negative and personal campaign against a Jewish Labour councillor, Dan Ozerel, which incited anti-Semitic attacks and threats against his family since a by-election in 2020. Has the board commented on this recently or reached out to Councillor Ozerel?
Thank you, Richard. Firstly, to say that at the time of the original instance, we did make a statement of support for Dan when he was when this originally happened, and obviously we're aware of the fact that the appeal was dismissed, and we hope that this draws a line for Dan and he's able to move on. We haven't made a public statement yet, but we have been in touch with Dan and I have met with him.
Thank you. I'll let you do the questions in the room, but can I just tell you online, we have Louise Ellman and Andrew Gilbert. So if you want to write that down and then you'll ask your questions.
Okay, thank you. I've got Joe and then Joe Millis and then David May in the room, and then I'll go to Louise Ellman and Andrew Gilbert.
Hi, Amanda. Joe Millis, Bromley Reformed Synagogue. On a similar note, last week in Parliament, somebody called Jacob Rees-Mogg stood up and attacked, during a debate on bullying, the Labour Party for its role in bullying a Labour MP being Jewish. This is once again an example of the Tories weaponising Jews. What was even more galling was the fact that Jacob Rees-Mogg, who was educated the expensive way and went to Oxbridge, and I think is not a particularly stupid person, used the term Illuminati to describe 2 Jewish MPs not too long ago. I would imagine that Mr. Rees-Mogg knows what Illuminati means and the background to the actual term. I'm wondering why the board was silent then and has been silent again. Surely when tackling anti-Semitism and the use of Jews as a weapon in political debate, it should be done without fear or favour. Why is it not done without fear or favour? Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. So you will know, as I've said on several occasions, as has Marie, that much of our work is done in private as much as in public, and you might not like that, but that is the case, and often with these cases we do bring them up in when we meet with the party chairman, because these are issues of party standards and party culture. There is no doubt that there is a certain level of toxicity within party culture at the moment, as we've seen from the recent issue with MPs saying that they're not going to stand again for the next election, and referring to the party culture as part of that. And so that is something that we encourage all parties to sign up to, the standards in public life that were laid down by both the Nolan principles and also in the work that Theresa May did in 2019. It does mean the Tories should sign, all parties should sign up.
We're always silent about Tories.
We're not in a debate.
No. David.
Good morning, Amanda. Thank you for taking my question. David May from Leicester Hebrew Congregation. Last week, many of you probably watched Channel 4, David Baddiel, Jews Don't Matter. it's obvious that we don't matter, according to a lot of people. And I think maybe we could consider getting David Baddiel on board as an advocate. It's, you know, it's the same old story with the Hanukkah bus. Jews don't matter. If it had been a Muslim bus, I'm sure that the situation would have been quite different. It's just an observation. That can we get David Baddiel on board? Thank you.
Thank you, David. We certainly are in touch with David on different things, but thank you.
Excellent.
Can I just read, because I can see, although they're frozen on my screen, hands from Louise Ellman, Andrew Gilbert, Flora Frank, Borach Michael, Paul Hart and Doris Schmetterle.
Say that again, Flora.
Louise Ellman, Andrew Gilbert, Flora Frank, Borach Michaels, Paul Hart and Doris Schmetterling, although I've obviously got the president's statement, so
okay.
And we've got in the room at the back, so if you want to alternate in the room. And
Okay,
take as many as you can in the next 6 minutes or 7 minutes.
Okay, I have 6 minutes. So I promised Louise and Andrew first from online.
So you can have 10.
Okay.
Because I was so quick.
Yes,
so you've got
thank you so much.
Louise Ullman, Jewish Labour Movement. Amanda, there are 2 items on your report. The issue of the London bus that was under attack and the hate convoy that went through London, specifically through Jewish areas, calling, amongst other things, rape your daughters, referring to Jews. Now, in both these instances, the authorities, and specifically the CPS, have failed to act. And I think this is extremely serious. This is about bringing anti-Semitism onto the streets, where individual people can be in fear of their lives, yet the CPS is apparently not acting. And you have said that this is being pursued, but is it being pursued in this context? Something extremely serious, a new development, Jews potentially in fear of their lives, and the authorities apparently finding that they can't or won't act.
Thank you. Andrew, I'm going to take your question in case that it might have something to do with the same issue. It may not, but it may do.
I think we can hear a bit better. Let's see.
Yeah, Andrew Gilbert, Reform Judaism and co-chair London Jewish Forum. I just wanted, there are 2 very quick things from me. First, specifically on the same thing as Louise, is the recognition on the 6th of December that we've got a meeting, an open meeting, which has been organised by the CPS in North London for anyone to go to. And I would urge any deputies in North London to consider going on the 6th of December. Amanda can give you details. I can give you details. Very important chance to challenge CPS. We've also had meetings with MOPAC and with lots of and with the police on both of these matters. And in future, we've got all sorts of ways that hopefully some of this, in terms of policing, will be dealt with differently. But the CPS is a big issue of on this, and I think the 6th of December is very important. And the other thing is your comments on Oliver Dowden and what happened with the Jewish Council in Hertfordshire. The board has to take up with Oliver Dowden, who's a cabinet member, the unacceptable whitewashing of the attacks on the Jewish councillor by other Jewish councillors. And the board cannot stand back from criticising Oliver Dowden because he is deemed a friend in other areas. And I'm sorry, he is the most difficult person on this issue to consider. And I urge the board to take this up.
Thank you, Andrew. So Louise, just to come back to you, I completely understand the strength of feeling within the room, within the deputies online and within the community as a whole. And for those deputies that were at the Metropolitan Police Jewish Community Forum that took place earlier this week, you'll have heard me say how very clearly to the police, and I've said the same to the CPS, that the level of trust in the justice system right now by the Jewish community is probably at an all-time low, and that has to be repaired. And we need to do everything in our power, both to keep this high on the agenda, but also to work with the police and the CPS to make sure that the processes are such that people don't have to get hurt before they're arrested, prosecuted and convicted.
You've got Flora and Paul Hart.
Okay, Flora and then Paul and then Jonathan in the room.
Sorry, it's my fault. Jonathan should go first. That was my fault. I should have said.
Okay, Jonathan Brodie. Thank you.
Jonathan Brodie, Kingsbury Synagogue. As I recall, the release from the board in response to the CPS, sorry, not the Ofcom report, was that the board was considering whether to institute a judicial review. Is the board still considering it, or has it reached a conclusion? Thank you.
I'll refer to Marie, but to give you the detail on that.
What do you want to come back to that on the president? You can come back to that on the president's statement. Thank you.
Okay, Flora, Frank, and I've got Baruch as well. Flora and then Baruch.
All right, I'm just asking people if when they're finished speaking, they can turn off their microphones, because now we've got connection with those online. It's giving them interference if we've got our microphones on.
Flora, Frank, please.
Sorry, Amanda, we've lost Flora from Zoom, so can we go to the next person?
So that's Baruch Michaels.
Yeah, Baruch is next.
Hi, I am a UJS representative from the University of Manchester, and I can testify to the many occasions when I'm conscious of my Jewish identity and any potential anti-Semitic threat. The Jewish Society has worked with CST to arrange basic self-defense training for Jewish students, and this was overwhelmingly welcomed by students at the time. I cannot emphasize how important it is for Jewish schools, as this was originally a question for David Meyer, but also relevant to the Defence Division, for Jewish schools in this country to follow the examples of French Jewish schools and implement martial arts and self-defense training. This is especially after considering the anti-Semitic diatribes committed against school children during the Hanukkah last year. Anti-Semitic crime is currently at its highest levels. Please would you consider advocating the teaching of self-defense to school children, which not only has positive mental health benefits, can deter potential threats, but also save lives in the long run. I really appreciate if the board could consider advocating this to schools. Many thanks.
Thanks, Baruch. I have to say that I participated in CST self-defense training during COVID, which was done via Zoom. And it was fantastic, specifically for women. And it was fantastic to see dozens and dozens of women all in their front rooms learning self-defense. And I know that the CST offer those on a regular basis, encourage all women to participate. And so, Baruch, I can understand that there was a good response to the CST offer on campus for Jewish students. In terms of offering something similar in martial arts to students in, I'm assuming, primary and secondary school, I will send that back to the CED, because it would be for them to pick that up. But thank you for your suggestion.
Real quick, we've got Paul Hart,
and
Doris Schmetterling, and that's it. Yeah.
Paul Hart and Doris Schmetterling, and that will be it for this time.
Amanda, can you hear me? Amanda?
Yes, we can hear you, Paul.
Thank you very much. Paul Hart, Mosaic Liberal Synagogue. Unless I've had my head buried in the sand, has there been any reports of Jewish supporters at the World Cup having any problems at all? Or has this been suppressed, or have Jews not gone to the World Cup because of the location?
I doubt that your head is buried in the sand, Paul, because I don't know many deputies as active as you are. So I do know that there was reported some problems with availability of kosher food. I also know that that FIFA turned down the offer to have the Jewish anti-Semitism czars from across the different countries where they're appointed attending. But at the same time, I haven't heard any specific reports of anything facing Jewish supporters at the at the games. And I'm looking around the room, and the football supporters here are not giving me any other issues. So, but we stay alert, and if we hear of anything, we will, of course, respond to it.
And Dorothy,
and Dorothy.
Schmetterling and Flora will, I'm sure, put her question.
Hello. Good afternoon. I have to ask, given the problems, can the room hear me? Somebody say yes.
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 Thank you. I need to put a fly in the ointment of this earlier point. I'm disturbed to hear that David Baddiel is even under consideration for being drawn into this discussion of anti-Semitism. If anybody who saw that documentary, well, I can't speak for everybody, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people cringed. It started quite well, but then it deteriorated into a very strange thing. He interviews Miriam Margolis, who is so bad on Israel, and he himself has distanced himself from Israel, saying he's got nothing to do with him. I am sorry, I do not wish to see David Baddiel here. Look at Hen Madzik's comment in Jewish News the other day, who felt himself completely excluded by this. And he says, may I quote a paragraph? I've got 30 seconds. Unfortunately, any gains made by the book and subsequent documentary on Channel 4 are immediately negated by the creator engaging in harmful stereotypes about Jewish people. Though it may appear Baddiel is ringing the alarm in an effort to protect Jews writ large, it turns out that he's only talking about his kind of Jews. I strongly endorse that, and I highly recommend we do not get David Baddiel involved at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dorry. There will be as many opinions on that documentary as there are deputies, I expect. And as one deputy said to me last week, there are 380,000 Jews in the country. We'll know for sure the number when the census, the Jewish census numbers come out on Tuesday. But there are as many opinions as there are Jews. I feel we're blessed, because there are people from right across every point of view within the community who are willing to put their heads up, put their heads over the parapet, and to provide their perspective on what anti-Semitism means to them. And David Baddiel gave his perspective on why, for him, Jews don't count. It may not be what everybody believes, and there were certainly things in it that many of us might have found not to their liking. However, I don't believe the documentary was meant to make an impact on Jewish people. It was there to educate people who aren't Jewish and to understand what Jewish people are facing in terms of anti-Semitism. And in that, it raised awareness, and I think it did us good service. So thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with. What's going to happen next is we have got 3 questions that couldn't be given to Michael Ziff. So we're now in a position for Michael will read out the questions. He'll read out the name and their constituency and the question, and then Michael will provide the answer. So thank you.
So Sid Brahm, who is, of course, the deputy chair of the F&O division, I think deputy for Barnet Synagogue, and somebody will yell at me if I'm mistaken. So it's re-treasurer's report. Can we draw deputy's attention to the communal contribution as set out in the report? The communal contribution is vital to the BOD income, and please, all deputies, play their full part. So that's not really a question, that's more just a comment, and one I endorse entirely. A second question from Susan Pascoe, who is deputy for Ner Israel. In page 2 of your report, you refer to shul membership statements as bills, but as is shown in section 416 of the Income Tax Act 2007, for shuls to claim gift aid, HMRC requires that they are donations. By referring to them as bills, they are not a qualifying donation for gift aid purposes, and this puts at risk the thousands of pounds that each shul claims under gift aid. HMRC is very alert to these issues, as has been shown in the past. Thank you very much.
Do you want me to answer the question? That's a very relevant point. We will make sure that the correct terminology is used in future. One of the members of the team has also agreed that he's going to be a final arbitrator or looker over of my report. So with that, gentleman could also please take that on board to look at things like that, because they are important that we don't make those sort of mistakes. So thank you very much indeed.
Final question from Linda Sharp from Finchley United Synagogue. Do you still have benefit from the all aboard shops? I have heard rumours that they are now a commercial enterprise. No idea.
We don't get.
There's a mixed view about whether we do or don't get support from them. I will investigate and come back is probably the best answer to that.
The benefit we get is in relation to our hidden treasures program. There's an element of support from there, which is very, very small, but certainly not commercial. Sorry to respond on that.
On a personal note, I've actually been, some of you will know that we actually just moved my mother to London, and we have cleared a lot of her stuff up, and we actually went to all aboard. And I decided to do the same. So decluttering is a wonderful thing to do, and all aboard will be the beneficiary of that. So can I recommend to everybody they try that?
Do you mind if we take a question from Ruth Friedman, Pinner United at the back?
I'm not sure if it's a question or really a statement. I'm just adding on from what Sid said about the communal contribution. We recently in Pinner Synagogue, because I'm a deputy of Pinner Synagogue, had David Mendoza-Wolfson came to speak to us. And I have to urge all deputies to get members of the board to come and speak in your community. The impact was really extraordinary. Many people came to see me afterwards and said, I hadn't realized what the board did. I didn't really want to, I wouldn't always have given my contribution, but now I'm going to. So it really does have very high impact. And I urge everyone, get them to come and talk to your community. Thank you.
I wholeheartedly agree that the best way to communicate what we do is face to face and to turn up and to pitch up. I know that all the officers are prepared to go out. I particularly enjoy going out to meet other synagogues. Just as a passing, when my dad passed away 18 years ago, I went out to 135 different synagogues because actually I do enjoy going to meet people and say Kaddish in 135 different people. I got, for those cricket lovers, I got my century at Lord's. So there we go.
We've got one more question from Vicky Harris. So we're just, it's been dealt with.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again, deputies. I'm really sorry. This will be the last time that we use this venue because we obviously have had troubles before, so we will resolve it. So I can only apologise. But can I say how wonderful it is to see everybody face to face, to meet people for the first time and to see everyone. And I'm sure you've heard that we've moved offices to London Wall. So what we're going to do in January is to have some events for deputies. We'll invite you all and we'd like to spend some time with you socially, talking to you, and just some quality time being together as our deputy family. So we hope you'll look forward to that. And I've been to some events recently and a couple of you have said to me, where is our ID? We used to have our ID with our photograph, our name, our constituency. So we're going to sort that out as well, because I know a lot of you are very proud to have your board ID. You won't be able to use it to get into the building. I just need to be clear on that. But we're very happy for you to wear it to events and obviously to come into the plenary. So we'll try and design something more modern, and then we'll get something out to you as to what you need to do. But we'll have photographs and we'll make it look nice so we can all be proud to have our ID. So thank you. Moving on to the President's statement, can I just apologise? Last time that we said wrongly a granddaughter for Edward Cohen, and it should have been a great grandson, Ezra. So apologies for that. Some muzzle tops. This is always good. Khalid Hassan on the birth of his son, Russell Khan on the bat mitzvah of his granddaughter, and Robert Vertis on the bat mitzvah of his granddaughter. So it's very good to have some good news. I'm really pleased that the board actually has stood up and has acted as the defender of our community in relation to the Hanukkah bus incident, which Amanda has covered. The board should not have had to do that. We spent a lot of money on lawyers, but we know that we did the right thing. We were vindicated in having a forensic report and a linguistic report, because Ofcom have concluded that the BBC has serious editorial misjudgment, and that is something that is extremely serious, and we hope that the BBC have taken note. There have been some incidents since, and we will make sure that whenever we see bias or reporting in that manner, that we will do something about it. However, we don't consider it's in the community's interest to seek to go further with a judicial review. We have made our point known. Ofcom have really come down hard on the BBC and given their verdict. And what we need to try to do is to restore relations with the BBC, to work with them going forwards, to make sure that there are not any serious editorial misjudgments going forward. So on my part, I think that the relationship is important. And before anyone asks me, no, we have not yet heard from the BBC, but I hope that we will do. And Ofcom obviously considered the issue very, very carefully and have come down with a very strong and reasoned judgment, even if it didn't quite go as far as we would have liked. It's very, very clear that the BBC have not come out with any glory in this matter. So I hope that we can all move on together with the BBC, and we will have to come back to you as to what happens, but I would like to find some way to restore relationships and have trust in going forward to avoid these sorts of incidents again. And I'm sure that they may have learned their lessons as well along the way. Very disappointed, as Amanda has said, the CPS. The hate convoy was just that. It was called a hate convoy. Threatening to rape the daughters is just not acceptable in today's society. They know who they are. We know what was said. And if the excuse is going to be given, as I suspect it might, there were two people and we don't know which one it was, that's not going to be acceptable. So we will be pursuing this to find out why this was not prosecuted, because this, frankly, is an outrage from the CPS. It's clear hate crime, and it makes a mockery if there is no prosecution in a case like this. So I can't see what reason there can possibly be. So we'll have to wait and see. Amanda's spoken about the Abu Dhabi Forum for World Peace, which was a first. It's absolutely amazing. Having peace in the region is incredible, and I'm very much looking forward to the future opportunities that we can all work together on this. And we had a wonderful event. I hope the deputies really were very, very proud to celebrate the Abraham Accords, where the Prime Minister came also and spoke to us. And the board worked in partnership with Abraham Accords UK and with ELNET, and I think it was a very successful and well received event. And I have to say, one of the proudest things that I do year on year since 13 years old is to go to the Ajax parade. I have to say thank you to all the deputies. Denise Lester, you were amazing. You lead everybody. There is no greater mitzvah than remembrance, and I'm really proud to see the whole community turn out. I miss the time that I can no longer play my bagpipes with JLGB marching up and down, but it really is amazing. It brings the community together. And we also had a very successful trip for the World Jewish Congress. Noah will tell you as well. Noah came on the Young Gen project, and we have a number of young Jewish diplomats from the diplomatic corps that attended as well. And that's something that's very important, that we work together as a global community to tackle the problems, and EFRAT was also there and plays an integral part in that, and we all found that it was something that was very, very special. And you may have read that I've been appointed as the Commissioner for Gender Equality and Inclusion, which is something that I'm very much looking forward to. That's such an important part of my life and my personal values. So I think that we are very worldwide respected, and we play above our weight, and we should really think about all the tremendous good things that we do as a community, because when I speak to other leaders, I only realize how much that we actually do together, and it really is something very, very special, even if we don't feel it on a day-to-day basis. And we really do have the full diversity and spectrum of views. I'm sorry if we don't agree on absolutely everything, but we agree on so much. And friendship, I think, is really something that's very, very important between all of us. So very happy to take questions. I'm sure there'll be a few. Right, okay. So you can Amos first, because you were first last time. Go on, Amos.
Thank you very much, Marie. Amos Johnfield, Deputy from Assorted Judaism, and I actually have to go after this. I'm not going to storm out. It's intended.
It's fine. It's fine.
So thank you for answering my question on the UK's recognition on the state of Palestine. It was the third time of waiting to get an answer, so I'm glad that we got one. I'm a little bit confused because we have two areas where the board is very inconsistent with regard to a two-state solution. One, and they're both in the United Kingdom's gift. One is the location of the United Kingdom's embassy, and the other one is whether the United Kingdom joins the community of 138 nations recognizing the state of Palestine. Both will be part of what would bring forward a two-state solution. It'll be a unilateral move, and you committed at the last plenary to unilateral moves in order to achieve a two-state solution. You committed to the embassy being moved to Jerusalem, which you've restated in your questions today. So my question is, why is there a double standard? Why do we believe on one hand that we should be pushing on one side in order to achieve a two-state solution, but not the other? This is not, as you've put into your question, about ensuring that the negotiations take place over there, because you've already intervened once. So if we intervene once on one side in order to achieve a balance, in order to actually achieve a two-state solution, we should be intervening on both sides. So I'm just a little confused as to why there's a double standard. Why you're asking for one side to make change from the United Kingdom and not the other.
Thank you for your, I think that's probably more likely a statement on your part. I'm really sorry, I'm just going to repeat the answer as I think you would expect, with the greatest of respect. I'm absolutely in favour of a two-state solution. I've made that really clear. We've had a vote on it. We had a fantastic debate. We know that the parties have got to reach agreement. There's nothing that we personally can do on that. And I'm not going to change my personal view that we must have a two-state solution, but a democratic Palestine is absolutely what we are looking for. But as I've said in my answer, they haven't come to the table. So people all have to come to the table to negotiate together. And I can only pray that there is peace in Jerusalem and in Israel. Right, I'm trying to see who was next. Jerry's hand went up very fast, and I've got some online. So could Michael just write down a few names for me? Sorry, I can't get the order right. I'm trying. I've seen Michael Motts as well. Jerry.
Jerry Lewis, Hampstead Synagogue. First of all, can I congratulate you on your achievement of getting a post within the WJC. Could you please tell us what the state of play is with the EJC? Second of all, I wish to thank you for making a comment about the BBC, in which you indicate you're trying to improve the relationship with the organisation. I have to declare an interest. Previously, I served as a senior press officer at the BBC. My worries about the BBC are quite considerable. A lot of damage has been done over this saga of Oxford Street, and I'm even more concerned that the amount of time that has happened since the meeting that you had with the BBC, and at some stage or another, we're going to have a major reconciliation. I am very, very upset and annoyed with the Jewish Chronicle. Their deliberate campaign of demonising the BBC is going to do immense damage to our community. The JC is chaired by a guy called Robbie Gibb, and in his previous incarnation had a major role within the government and always had an anti-BBC attitude. We've got to distance ourselves, and I ask you specifically to distance ourselves from that campaign, because they're calling for a parliamentary inquiry is going to do a lot of damage. The BBC covers Holocaust and other issues superbly, and we must be very careful how we now deal with the
Thank
BBC.
you.
We need them.
Final
point
You're
is this.
finished. I'm really sorry.
Can I just finish my final point? Thank you. Can I please ask you to refer back this piece of paper which says point of orders protocol.
Joey, I'm really sorry, but you've gone over. It's really not fair.
There's no clock on the screen.
There should be a clock on the
There is
screen.
no clock.
There was a clock. Michael has said to me, I'm really sorry. No disrespect. I'm respecting everybody in the room. I'm respecting everyone, including you in the
Let me just
room.
finish my sentence,
No,
Marie.
I'm really sorry. Michael has said to me that it's finished. I need to answer. I've got to be fair to everyone in the room and you. You did some very good points. So let me answer them, everybody, and then I will come back. So Jerry's first point was, what's the situation with the European Jewish Congress? So the situation there is that the Board of Deputies have still suspended their relationship with the European Jewish Congress because the president, Ariel Musicant, refuses to investigate allegations of sexual abuse which have been made against Rabbi Bleich, who is the treasurer. So that situation remains. However, in relation to the communities themselves, we've been working very well with the communities in Europe. We spent time with those communities whilst we were at the World Jewish Congress, but the situation remains unresolved, and we cannot sit at the table with the European Jewish Congress until there is a resolution of that issue. In relation to the BBC, thank you very much for your comments, Joey. I agree that the relationship is very, very important, and I know a question has come from Sid, which feeds into this, that we spent some £40,000, and I do take it seriously because our communal levy is only £30 a person, but it was such a totemic issue to the community that somebody had to say no, someone had to say it has to stop. But I also do agree with Jerry that we have to be able to move on with the BBC. But if there are any other issues, we're not going to sit quietly. We will call out, we will deal with it, but relationships are also important. I'm now going to just look at the list online. I'm not going to ask someone who's asked a question already because I want to be fair to everybody in the room. So can I try and see if we can get Jeremy Michelson? Can you ask your question?
Thank you, Marie. Jeremy Michelson, Manchester Great New and Central Synagogue. At the recent executive meeting, it was suggested that we should start board meetings early because regional deputies could attend via Zoom. At the time, I said nothing because I was aware of the chaos on the railways that at the moment makes it very difficult for deputies, particularly from the northwest, where it's multiplied by the chaos with Avanti Northwest actually attending. But in the long run, we cannot, submit to this. Attendance by in person means that you can network with people, you can talk to honorary officers, etc., which would be denied regional deputies if the board meetings were so early that it was impossible to come down on a Sunday. We're told they could come on Saturday night and stay with friends. What happens if you haven't got people you can stay with? That's just unacceptable. And finally, furthermore, those who are Shomerei Shabbat in the Orthodox tradition would only be able to come down maybe November, January, February. For the rest of the time, Shabbat would be going out too late. By the time you've said Havdalah, etc., etc.
Thank you, Jeremy. 5 seconds.
Right. So, but yeah, basically, it's discriminatory, and we really have, we've got to start the meetings later once the railways are sorted.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the board team to look at the timings, because we want to be fair to everybody, and it's really important. I made a commitment when I was standing for election, which I've honoured, that we're here to represent the regional communities. So we have to find a timing that works for everyone, and we won't be here again. We will probably, hopefully, be in our new premises. So we'll have to work it out. But absolutely, Jeremy, it's really important that we have representation from the region. So we will work on it and make sure as far as we can that everybody is happy. I promised Martin Motts. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. Martin Motts, Northwest Surrey Synagogue. Coming back to the topic of the BBC and our relationship with them, which we clearly want to improve from here on in. If we look at the Metropolitan Police, there is an association of Jewish police officers, and I know they work with Shomrim, and I believe that within the Metropolitan Police, they're using the sounding board to understand the sensitivities of the Jewish community. I'm not actually aware of a similar grouping within the BBC, but is this something that the board would like to encourage and indeed work with as part of our initiative to improve relationships with the BBC?
I suspect from various people that I've met in the BBC who may be Jewish that there may not be a reluctance to come together on the basis that they are Jewish. And I want to really find it a way to work with the organisation itself to actually change. I hear what you say, and I've certainly got lots of people that talk to me within and without the organisation. They're not all Jewish, but mostly they are in relation to the bus, and we certainly will carry on talking to them. But I need to have a few meetings, and I will come back. But I've said that my priority is to try to see if we can restore the relationship with the BBC. So we'll have to be a bit patient. And I will report back to you. But you're right about the Association of Jewish Police. I have worked with them in the past, and certainly perhaps that is a good thing. Perhaps I'll ask Amanda to have a meeting there, because we all need to do something to make sure that the CPS do their job, because before they wanted to blame the police for not having the evidence, and now there's the evidence, we're not seeing the prosecutions. So I think that's important. So if you live with us, the BBC for the moment, we will work on it and go and see various people, and then be able to come back to you when we can. And depending on what is said, we'll have to come up with a strategy for it. So can you just give us a little bit of time? But the aim, the direction of travel, is to try to get the BBC to listen to us and have a relationship and work in a more positive way. They do many good things. We shouldn't forget that also. Can I just take somebody online, and then I'm going to ask the room. You're next in the room, but can I take somebody online first? David Sophia, we haven't heard from you today.
Okay. Good morning.
Yeah,
yes,
morning.
I can. Yes, I've just got two matters, one communal and one personal. Like the board, we in Mosaic Reform have just moved into a new building, long awaited after many years, and we're delighted that we moved in a few weeks ago. But it's very important, I'd like to just briefly announce that, as you may know, Mosaic Jewish Community, which includes both Mosaic Reform and Mosaic Liberal and Mosaic Masorti, will all be operating from that building. And it's custom designed basically to be a cultural as well as a religious and educational hub. On the 20th of November, I'm delighted that we had 300 people attending a cultural event, Jazz Psalms for Peace, which actually included 2 works commissioned for the opening of our building and written, composed by one of our members. So we're delighted that this is at last on its way. We're also delighted to say that this is a truly unique venture, and please watch this space for how Mosaic Jewish community, including a Reform, a Liberal and a Masorti community, will all be operating together with tremendous benefits from that in the same building. The other very brief item is a purely personal one. I didn't have time, I'm afraid, to send in notification when I should have done, but I hope you'll forgive me if I mention that I too am delighted to announce the bat mitzvah of my granddaughter as well a couple of weeks ago. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's good news. Mazel tov, David, and mazel tov on the opening of your building. And if you ask one of us to come down and speak, I'm sure we will be delighted to come to your community. And I will contact Rabbi Kathleen to tell her how delighted I am to hear this news. Always good to hear some good news. So I promised you next.
Thank you. Peter Strauss, Deputy for Belsize Square Synagogue. You mentioned we'd spend a little under £50,000 on legal fees with the BBC. 40, sorry. Is there going to be any attempt either through mediation or arbitration to recover those costs wholly or in part with the BBC? Is that your wish?
No, the costs were spent because they were necessary. We're not involved in litigation. We haven't sued the BBC. And we did ask at a very early stage when we had our meeting in person if they would pay our fees, and we made it clear we're a small, humble charity dependent on contributions of £30, and they said no. And we really thought hard about whether we should spend the money, but sometimes it has to be done, and it was such a totemic issue for the community. If we can't stand up and be the defenders of the community over the Hanukkah bus, I'm not sure what we can do. We don't often spend money, but I think we had no alternative. So we can't reclaim the money, and we're not going to sue them for it. If anyone from the BBC is listening and they feel that they want to reconsider making a contribution to the Board of Deputies or the Jewish community, then they should come forward, because that would be very well received. Thank you for that, Peter. Thank you. Online, we have got Flora. Hopefully we can hear you, Flora, and then I'm going to take a question from the room. Flora.
Can you help me? Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the Ajax and all concerned for a most amazing, magnificent and moving parade last Sunday. It's very vital. Everybody knows this. Brian Bloom always tells us that more and more should join next year. I myself, in order to attend, missed a very important simcha, only got to the tail end of it. But my question to you is this, first of all. I'd like to say we all want peace. We've spoken about two-state solutions. We've spoken about all sorts of things today. But I'm extremely disturbed at the tone of an advert in the Jewish news called State Business. And it's inviting participants to witness recent videos taken by B'Tselem, who are volunteers, and they call it in the occupied West Bank, which is a questionable description, but I'm not going into that, on human rights. What really disturbs me is on human rights violations committed by Israel. Now, we all believe in freedom of speech. We all believe, a person has a right to express what they have to express, but this is very one-sided. My question to you is, and I understand because Yachad is involved with this, my question is, would they like to comment on the virtues of such a project? I think it's destructive. I think we want peace in the Middle East, but surely this will be counterproductive, including one-sided, very one-sided. I know this because I'm in the know of what happens in Yehuda v'Shomron.
Thank you, Flora. Thank you. You're out of time. I don't think, with respect, that Yachad have got so much influence they're preventing peace in the Middle East. You may not all agree with their views, but they are entitled to have projects. I'm not sure about the Jewish news campaign that I've seen, and I'm sure that the newspaper will want to be even-handed when it represents views on Israel. But we all know there are many and diverse views in relation to Israel and the current situation in Israel. We have to respect as a community that we have different views, but Yachad are a member of the Board of Deputies. They're entitled to their views, and the statements that have been coming from the board recently in relation to the Israeli elections. So we've got that one out on the table, and we cannot say that Yachad are stopping peace in the Middle East if that is what is being suggested whether or not you like their views. Thank you. Thank you. No,
I'm Peter Princely, Norwich.
thank you, Peter.
I recall that prior to the pandemic, there was a plan for the Board of Deputies to organise a visit to Israel for members of the board. And I wonder what arrangements are now likely to be put in place for that to be recreated.
I'm going to let Michael answer that because we have got arrangements coming down the line.
Thank you for the question, Peter. I mean, David Mendoza-Wolfson, who is the HO responsible, is away, but we are planning to do this trip. We're going to aim to do it in a year from now, next autumn, and we will get details out in early 2023. That is our goal.
Right, thank you. Sorry, I couldn't see you. You were behind Brian Bloom. Would you like to ask your question? Sorry.
I suspected you couldn't see me.
No, I couldn't.
Basically, I still feel it's worth our while to consider taking legal advice about £40,000. And it's all our money that's gone into it, and you're quite correct to go for that. But behind the scenes, it isn't an impossibility to see if we did talk to them and say that we did this because it was a necessary thing as part of the means of us working together. That would help us. I also would just like to mention, backing up David Sappier's comment, we've had 3 people this morning from Mosaic speaking, and we would very much welcome somebody from the board coming, and we will speak to you to see who will do that, to speak to Mosaic and Stanmore.
I will come with pleasure if you give me the invite on that one. That one's easy. On the recovery of the money, I am a solicitor, a partner in a law firm. I've been qualified since 1991. So I can tell you we cannot legally recover any money from the BBC. But when we get to speak to them again, we will reiterate the money that has been sent and ask them. But we tried that in our very first meeting. It's deplorable that a small, tiny community have had to spend their charitable funds on dealing with what is right. But the Ofcom process doesn't provide for our costs, but it is a matter of huge regret that we've had to do this, and I'm very conscious of this. And when I do have meetings and discussions, it's not something that I'm going to forget or not mention. I absolutely agree, but there isn't a legal way, and also having a legal process with the BBC is not going to take the relationship forward, but there isn't a way to recover.
I mean, I totally agree. It shouldn't be done officially. It would be an unofficial thing.
Don't worry, I am very much remembering that we are short of £40,000. Absolutely, it's affected our budgets, and it's a huge amount of money to try to raise from the community. And we really did think long and hard about it, but it just was something that was so fundamental. We are the defenders of the community, so we had to step up. So thank you. Is there anyone else in the Efrat?
Thanks so much, Marie. Efrat Sofa, S&P Sephardi Community. I'd like to congratulate you, Marie, on your appointment as our commissioner at the WJC for gender equality. And I'd love for everyone to know how well regarded the Board of Deputies is for gender equality around the world, and that was widely acknowledged. And I was wondering whether you'd be able to, and I know that you'll be sharing best practices internationally so that other communities could benefit from our good work here. I was wondering whether you'd consider feeding back to us once you embark on your project, so that perhaps communities locally in the UK would be able to benefit from those best practices.
Oh, absolutely. It's a privilege to be offered such a role worldwide. And we do have so much to offer here. We are streets ahead of other communities. We don't realise it, but we are. And once we are up and running with our programme, absolutely, we want to use it to feed back here, because we do want young deputies and women to have their place in, bless you, in the community going forwards. So using the resources, using the skills and involving young people worldwide, I think is an excellent way to be able to. So thank you. Can I take James Harris, and then I'm going to go to Anthony Adler, who's online, and then Jeremy Havardi. James.
Thanks very much, Marie. I did ask it in the last plenary, but could we please be sent the notes of the executive committee meeting?
There
from
wasn't, well,
the
there
last-
wasn't, there wasn't.
I don't think they were
Last
sent in the
time as
last
well.
papers.
They were last time as well, James. In both times they were there, I promise
I'm
you.
talking about the last plenary.
They were
That's-
there.
I don't, oh, fine. Okay, I stand corrected then. Second, just in relation to the points of order protocol, which I believe Jerry was going to talk about. We've seen today how easy it is for those not in the room to potentially be disadvantaged, and I acknowledge that the problem that we've seen today was fixed relatively quickly. I guess I just think this new protocol would disadvantage those deputies wishing to raise legitimate points of order and makes the process far slower. Also, just from a constitutional perspective, I think the published protocol appears to be tantamount to an amendment or at least an extension of the standing orders, in which case a vote should be held in line with the Constitution. Please, I would urge you, Marie, if this is indeed a change or an extension to the standing orders, please do put this to a vote, or otherwise points of order should be dealt with as soon as they are raised, and not via the chair of the Constitution Committee.
Thank you, James. It's not a change to the Constitution. Under the Constitution, I'm the person responsible for running the meetings. We're not going to, I'll let you speak in just a second. We're not going to make any changes to the Constitution, but we want to be fair to people in the room and online, so that we can't, it's not aimed at anybody individually, but we can't stop meetings indefinitely. Nobody online is going to be disadvantaged, but I'll come over to Tony.
What the standing order says is that deputies are entitled to raise a point of order, and it's to be dealt with promptly. It doesn't say how the point of order is to be addressed, what the mechanics are. And what we've now done, in the sense of the matter going through the chair of the Constitution Committee or someone standing in for me, is just to make it easier for the process to operate. There's been, Jerry, you won't ask to speak, but I will answer. If a point comes to me and it's my view that it isn't a point of order, then I will, Jerry, please wait, no need to interrupt. Then I will give my opinion to the president. And if the president wants to follow my advice, she can. And if she doesn't want to follow my advice, she doesn't need to. There is no requirement in the standing orders that the points of order must go directly to the president, to the chair. And the process that's laid down in the note is consistent with that.
We're going to move on now. Thank you very much, because I think that people need to be given the chance to speak, because we don't come together very often, and we want to make sure that people do have that opportunity. Right, I did say Anthony Adler and then Jeremy Havardi. So Anthony. Do we have Anthony?
You do. Hello, I hope everyone can hear me. Anthony Adler,
Yes.
St. Albans Masorti Synagogue. I just wanted to ask a follow-up question really about the kind of the practicalities of the board's stated position that we support a two-state solution for Israel and Palestine. Now, you made it very clear in your answer to Amos when he asked earlier that you were not minded to call for the board to call, rather, or for you personally to call, for the state of Palestine to be recognised by the UK as a state, which seems to me to be a fairly fundamental building block towards a two-state solution. But you did mention that obviously you weren't really in favour of unilateral moves, and I do understand that. Are you willing to commit then, on the basis that you don't think unilateral moves are appropriate, that we will no longer seek to advocate for the embassy being moved to Jerusalem as a unilateral move? Will you commit that if you don't really think that's appropriate, will you commit that that is something that should only be lobbied for by the board following a vote, as it is a fairly contentious issue, and it does, as it seems fairly clear, really fundamentally interact with our position on the two-state solution, if you think that unilateral moves are not really in our gift to make. So as I say, I'm just a little bit confused, because if the board does support a two-state solution,
Thank you.
two states are a fundamental part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to confirm, the board definitely supports the two-state solution. I reiterate the answer I gave to Amos and in the president's statement. I've given my answers. Asking me to say them in a different way isn't going to change the answers that I've given. I pray for peace in Israel. I pray that all parties will come to the table. I pray that there will be two states and that there will be peace. There will be peace soon. The next person, Jeremy Havardi. Thank you. And I think it's your first question, Jeremy.
Can you hear me? Yes, it is indeed my first question. Congratulations, Marie, for your appointment, by the way, to the WJC. I'm going to go over something that was mentioned.
Constituency.
Oh, sorry, Benaberth UK. I'm very pleased to be here. In regard to the BBC, I think we are all aware that the BBC in its 100th year has done a lot of very good work, and a lot of its services are to be applauded, and some of those relate to issues to do with Jews and Judaism. But I think we are aware that it has a lot of blind spots and misjudgments and biases when it comes to issues to do with Israel, Zionism and anti-Semitism. And one can cite a few examples from reports on the BBC News, including, of course, the one you've mentioned, the egregious report on the Hanukkah bus attack. My question is this: you're going to attempt to engage with the BBC, which is laudable, in regard to these blind spots. But if there is no positive result from that, and no recognition that really the BBC is doing anything wrong, will the board commit to working with other organisations, including the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, Lawyers for Israel, and I have to say Benaberth too, in actually holding the BBC to account? Because otherwise, I'm afraid, if this doesn't happen, then I'm not sure that we're going to see any end to these egregious and biased reports from the BBC. It needs to be held to account.
Thank you. I'm sure, look, there are other very worthy organisations in the community, but we here are at the Board of Deputies holding the BBC to account, and it was the Board of Deputies that made the complaint to Ofcom. So we will continue to advocate for the community. We've also made complaints in the past about the reporting of Israel bias, and we need to continue to do that. We are the democratically elected body of the UK community, and I think it's right that this work continues here, and where appropriate we do work with our communal colleagues, as we've done throughout the Enough is Enough crisis that we've had with the Labour Party. But rest assured, we will continue to deal with the issues with the BBC. They're not going to be forgotten. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room? Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Tessa Milligan, Yahad. I was pleased to read your answer, Ms. President, to my question committing the board to opposition to anti-Palestinian racism. Please, could you confirm that if such language arises in a meeting, it will be dealt with? There was an instance in the last meeting, which I know was omitted from the minutes, but did happen. And if this happens again, will it be managed in the meeting?
We deal with all allegations, bad language, inappropriate comments as they come along. And if anything does happen in a meeting, I certainly don't want to repeat that in the minutes, because it would compound the issue. So we do our very, very best to deal with all the circumstances. Anything specific, please raise it. So we will deal with everything as it comes. I think I can't be speculative, but we will try to deal with everything as firmly as we can. Certainly that anything that is said that is inappropriate, because things are said that are inappropriate, people sometimes are offensive, and it's very important, even if we all have different views, that we come together as our family and that we can have tolerance and respect. And that works, I have to say, very well. Our colleagues will say at the World Jewish Congress, where people have got such vastly different views, but are all part of the World Jewish Congress family, and we should all be part of the Board of Deputies family here and try and find a way that we can all stay together through difficult times with difficult views. So thank you. We will take everything as it comes, and we'll definitely deal with things that are inappropriate. David.
And I've spoken before. Thank you for taking this last 3-point question. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you, Marie, on your wonderful achievement of raising £500,000 to the JLGB. I think it's the most magnificent effort. And on the back of that, I would like to say that I've had a recent communication this morning with regards to high cancer. And I'm just wondering if we could possibly publicise that. A recent near relative of mine has had 3 years of considerable help from this wonderful cancer cause. And if we could possibly somehow get another fundraising page, that would be fantastic. My second point, very briefly, it's Jeremy Michelson's point, and that is getting to meetings. Leicester is very, and I'm going to blow this up because I'm from Leicester. Leicester is very central. You can get to Leicester and just about 2 hours from Leeds, 2 hours from Manchester, and less than 2 hours from London and many surrounding areas. We're very central. And I don't know why we can't have a couple of meetings a year or 3 meetings a year in Leicester. It's very, very close to everybody. And it's important that people are meeting together face to face. And I think the exclusion of the northern regions, very important. And lastly, if I could ask the board to collate an indicative vote of how many deputies may be coming to Leicester for the whole weekend, that will be very helpful. Thank you very much for taking that point.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to take the credit for raising £500,000 for the Jewish Lads and Girls Brigade. Neil Martin and the team, you were amazing. Yes, I did go and help to take part. JLGB is my constituency, and I think there's nothing more important than the next generation. I think we should publicise high cancer care. I think it's absolutely essential that we support other organisations, and I also will work to make sure that we try to get the timings right for the meetings. I think that's very, very important. I'm very happy if people would like to just put your hand up if you might be interested in coming to Leicester for the regional weekend, so that we can help David out to see what sort of interest there is. It will be a really fun weekend. That's a lot of people already. And can I say, because I shouldn't say it, but it's true, sometimes when we have, there you are, David, regional weekends, not so many regional deputies come. Please come, because it's really important. We don't want to see the same old London faces at the regional weekend.
We don't mind seeing the old London faces, but we'd like to see some new ones as well.
Right, okay, so I'm going to take one more question. Joy Wolf, you're online.
I didn't count.
Thank you, Madam President. I have unmuted, have I not?
We can hear you, Joy.
Thank you. I just wanted to raise again the issue that came up about the two-state solution and your honest reply that we support it. It's absolutely true that the board should support it. It's absolutely true that Israel supports it and the majority of Jewish people support it. What is difficult is that Israel has not got a partner for peace, and it is time that people recognise that the Palestinians are not willing to go for a two-state solution. And when people criticise us and criticise you and criticise the board, I think it's time that pressure was put on the Palestinians to ensure that Israel actually has a partner for peace. She doesn't at the moment, so it's pie in the sky to talk about a two-state solution.
Thank you. I'm just going to say that we've had a vote. We absolutely support the two-state solution. Both parties have got to come to the table. We pray that they will. We pray there is peace. I'm told that my time is up. I'm really, really sorry. I'll be delighted to talk to anybody afterwards. I'm very sorry. It's gone by very quickly, but we need to move on, because we have to just confirm the executive report, James, that was here. Has anybody got any comment on the executive report? Thank you. Moving on, we have an application to join the board from Save a Child's Heart. Tony Leafer is going to introduce this, and I have received notice that Edward Cohen would like to speak on it. So I'm going to hand over to Tony Leafer, and you need to get your blue voting cards ready. I'm just trying to find mine. It's behind my computer. Right, okay, Tony Leafer, thank you.
Thank you. The paper which everyone's had tells the story, and I'm going to speak briefly with the headlines. Save a Child's Heart is a UK registered charity which raises funds for an Israeli charity of the same name. The Israeli charity works in developing countries, providing medical services to sick children, as the name implies. Its fundraising structure is the same as Magen David Adom, which is also a medical charity, which the English charity feeds the Israeli charity. So there's not a precedent. There is a precedent, I mean. There's no doubt that the work of the charity is meritorious. The key question is this a Jewish organization? And I believe undoubtedly it is. The trustees of the UK charity are all Jewish. Its funding is principally Jewish. 90% of the employees of the Israeli charity are Jewish, and their work could hardly be a brighter light unto the nations. Our constitution says that the Constitution Committee may recommend any Jewish organization which doesn't fulfill all the criteria, such as a membership of 500 people, if it considers, if the Constitution Committee considers that it would be beneficial to the interests of the community and should be represented on the board. Our view is that even on the basis of Tikkun Olam alone, it should be represented on the board, and we commend the charity to the board. A 2/3 majority of deputies voting is required for admission. So we need to take a vote.
Edward Cohen has written to me and he would like to say something, which he's able to do, and then we are going to proceed with the vote unless anyone else asked to say anything. Edward, can you?
Yes. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, loud and clear. Please do speak.
Thank you. Edward Cohen, Ealing United Synagogue. Madam President, fellow deputies, this is an application for membership of the board by a charity formally registered in the UK, whose sole purpose appears to be to raise funds for an extremely worthy charity based in Israel. And with that, I have no argument with the previous speaker. It seems to me that if we allow this application, then it opens the doors to all charities with a Jewish connection, vague or otherwise, based here or abroad, for membership of the board. It may be that the board has already backed itself into corner by the Constitution stating that, quote, any other Jewish organisation can apply if it, that is the board, considers that such organisation is beneficial to the interests of the community and should be represented on the board. This point has been highlighted by the Constitution Committee in its recommendation today. It is not difficult for any such applicant to argue that its work is, or will be, or could be of possible benefit to the community. But realistically, I think we ought to ask, will membership of such organisation be of practical benefit to the board, the workings of the board, and to the British Jewish community in general? I assure deputies that I have nothing whatsoever against SACH. It is an excellent charity and contributes highly to the work of its parent in Israel. But will it help the British Jewish community? I respectfully suggest that the whole issue of future membership be passed back to the Constitution Committee to consider whether the criteria for membership can be reconsidered and if possible, narrowed, so that such bodies will have to show that there will be real benefits to the British Jewish community. If clause 4 of the Constitution needs amending, so be it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Edward. Tony is now going to read the resolution. I'm then going to ask you to vote, and if you are in favour, to put up your blue card. We will count the vote here, and there's going to be an online vote, and Andrew Lee will be conducting that vote, and at the end of the meeting I will give the result of the vote. So would you like to read the resolution, please?
The resolution, I haven't got a specific resolution in layman terms.
Andrew Lee.
I'll read it.
I'm going to conduct the vote.
That Save a Child's Heart, the UK registered charity, be admitted to membership of the board, and the Constitution Committee commends it to the board.
I'm just going to read, in accordance with clause 4B of the board's constitution, the Constitution Committee recommends SAC UK for representation on the board and declares that it considers that SAC UK is beneficial to the interests of the community and should be represented on the board. So if I can just read that out as well. Thank you. So if you're in favour,
Right, in
could
Zoom,
you put up your
thank you for,
cards, and then if anyone's
we're now going to
abstaining
go
or
to
against,
vote.
we'll deal with it.
So can everyone please,
And they'll
those
be
people who
collected in the
vote
room
favour
by
of the
Brian
They'll
and
be
Martin.
raise
collected.
their
Just if you
virtual
are
hand.
for.
Raise your virtual hand. The only way to vote is to raise your virtual hand. I will count to
Any under
10.
35 observers in the room should not be voting.
I'll count to 10. I'll count down from 10. Please, anybody who wants to vote for the motion, please raise your hand. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you. Can everyone now please lower their hands? And can we now have those who wish to vote against the motion, please put your hands up. Again, I'll count down from 10. 10, 9,
Thank
8,
you. Is there anyone that
7,
is entitled
6,
to a vote
5,
who is against?
3, 2, 1.
These
Thank
will now
you.
be collected.
The vote's now finished.
It's
Melanie, can you now
against.
Again, no, please,
reverse?
under 35s not to vote. Observers. I stand well corrected.
Yes.
Outrageous of me. My apologies. Joe, we tried that last time, Joe. It was a disaster. This is much better.
It is, even I've got the hang of it.
This works so much better. I won't confuse them, don't worry. I've got it.
Okay.
I've got it.
Right, now, just to be for good order, is there anybody who is entitled to vote, who is there's no abstaining, I'm told, no abstaining. So you have to be for or against if you're entitled to vote, or don't vote. Okay, we're not counting abstentions. I stand corrected. Have we completed the
In the
online?
room, yes. Online, don't know.
Can we find out so we can move on if we've completed the online? We're just checking to see that the online vote has been completed. Okay, thank you. We can move on. Now, this is really very exciting to be able to see, not just see new people, but to hear them and give them a chance to make a speech. It's very brave coming on to do your first speech, so I hope you'll be very supportive. So we've got 5 new deputies. Please, when they come on, give your name and your constituency. One is in Zoom. So we've got, first of all, up Stav Salpeter in person, then Judy Ballin in person, Martin Raven in person, Fiona Fran in Zoom, and Daniel Levy in person. So over to you, Stav. That's it. That's nice.
Thank you. Can I check if this is working?
Is the mic working? Yeah. Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. And I want to say also thank you so much to Rob and Marilyn for this opportunity to speak. My name is Stav and I'm the Under 35 Observer and Director of Community Engagement for Yachad. As you can hear from my accent, I wasn't born a Londoner. I am in fact Norwegian Israeli. And I think that the reason that I'm here on behalf of Yachad today is actually because of my Shirut Leumi, my civil service in Israel. I spent the second year of my civil service in a school for hospitalized kids in Eastern Jerusalem. And as divided as the city was, I remember that the hospital was a place where people could talk and finally find their common humanity, could talk despite the conflict. I remember Palestinian and Israeli children laughing with each other excitedly in the middle of the classroom while their parents sat on opposite ends of the classroom and eyed each other suspiciously. I remember that I learned about occupation for the first time. And I remember having my Palestinian colleagues being blocked from coming to their work and my Palestinian clients being unable to come to the hospital because of arbitrarily placed roadblocks for like symbolic affairs, such as the whims of an American president wanting to move his embassy to Jerusalem. Now, I want to raise my children in Israel someday, and I don't want them to grow up into these suspicious adults at the corners of the classrooms, and I don't want them to occupy another people, and I don't want them to prevent people from going to hospitals. And that is why I am here on behalf of Yachad today. I remember when I came to the UK to study at Edinburgh, the conversations that we had a possibility to have on campus were even more limited than in that classroom in Eastern Jerusalem. I remember that students would shout at each other across picket lines instead of engaging in an actual conversation. And it was here that I found that Yachad created a space, a very important space for all of us who care about Israel and who want to see it have a more peaceful future, to be able to advocate for that. So Yachad works to empower this voice for peace in our community, both in communal spaces like the board, in our Jewish youth movements, in synagogues, and also externally towards parliament. So I'm very proud that the majority of our community, including the board, support a two-state solution. But I think that sometimes we also need to think what that actually means in practice, beyond all the words. For a two-state solution, we need two states. And that means ending the occupation. And that means standing up to the racist Kahanism that has entered the Israeli Knesset. It means clearly setting out our Jewish values and working towards the Israel that we want to see. It's not enough to demand peace and an end to rockets every time there's an escalation in Gaza when we don't address the structural issues at play. Especially now that we have this racist government in the Knesset, we need to be able to draw red lines. And I was very pleased to see that the board had in its recent statement on the incoming Israeli government, these words about a grave concern. And I see that my time is running out, so I will just say that what we say in this room does have an impact. And I hope that we can remember that the next time that we do speak about Israel-Palestine, both for those children sitting in the classroom in East Jerusalem, but also for our children in our own communities who want to see us actually standing up for the values that we teach them. Thank you so much for the time. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Sure. Born and brought up in Manchester, my family were all active members of the Reform Synagogue known as Jackson's Row. I went to Bury Grammar School, 100 yards from the town hall where this board met in May. A pity I couldn't attend in person, but I zoomed there in spirit and participated in a way unimaginable during the 1960s. After Sussex University, I joined the Foreign Office, a bastion of white male public school privilege, not bedfellows as I generally sought out. I married Philippa, also from Jackson's Row family, in 1978, and we embarked on a 35-year adventure, about half of which was abroad and half in London. My postings abroad were Nigeria, India, United Nations, in New York, Sweden, and Brazil. When overseas, my role was usually to follow the political scene of the country and to report back to London or brief whoever the senior or important visitor might be in town. My career didn't follow any theme or logic. In London, I was at one time on the US desk, or trying to deal with the threat of spreading nuclear weapons, contrary to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, or as number 2 in the South Atlantic Department covering the Falklands and the Antarctic. Also headed up a Whitehall coordination department which brought together civil servants, intelligence agencies and law enforcement to combat drug trafficking. I spent my days impartially briefing, very important, impartially briefing ministers and officials on the issues for which I was responsible and drafting responses to MPs, members of the public, etc. on these topics. I didn't detect any anti-Semitism from colleagues during my years in the diplomatic service, although I admit I wore my Jewish identity relatively lightly at times. There were, of course, hardly any Jews in the FO at the time. The Camel Corps, as the Arabists described themselves, had romantic memories of formative years in the Middle East, but they were neither hostile to me nor in any way anti-Semitic. For the last decade, I concentrated on international trade, encouraging UK companies to export and foreign ones to invest here in the UK. And my final posting, which is at ambassadorial level, was the Director Trade and Investment, Consul General Sao Paulo in Brazil. On retirement, I set up a consultancy business, advising companies on the mysteries of doing business in Brazil. Time passed and our two sons were bar mitzvahed at Kingston Liberal Synagogue. My Jewish identity had become more prominent when I joined the council there. When I retired in 2010, we returned to the reform movement, joining Wimbledon Synagogue. For health and family reasons, we moved from SW19 last year, and we now live in Muswell Hill, where we joined Finchley Reform. I've been a keen cyclist since my 30s, and currently I'm trying to work out how disability affects cycling, and if I can help people with certain conditions. It's a cliche, but it's no less true to say we live in difficult times. But I believe strongly that diplomacy plays a role, as important a role as ever, in all walks of life, ranging from international peace and security, global development, the drive for prosperity, or climate change. We may live on an island, but we cannot detach ourselves from the rest of the world or from our international obligations. I want to help the board in its work by using my network of contacts to assist in navigating Whitehall and international corridors of power. The Middle East has been in turmoil for over 75 years. In Ukraine, a deluded and deranged despot who's enjoyed remarkable popularity for so many years has launched a conflict that's so close to our borders. I worry about the consequences more than ever before. In conclusion, Madam President, can I add my voice to those trying their best to reduce the tensions and to urge moderation by hardliners and extremists who use rhetoric and threats, hopefully to no avail.
Can you speak?
Is it for me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, the Zoom meeting has lost the room, so we couldn't hear it being announced. Okay, Fiona Frank from Lancaster and Lakes Jewish Community. There aren't that many Jews in Lancaster, but this means it's even more important that we have a strong organisation to bring us together and represent us, both to create community and when things go wrong. We're closely connected to the Jewish Society at the university. We host services and some events in the Jewish rooms at the uni, at Lancaster Uni, and we're represented on the University Chaplaincy Centre Trustees Group. My Judaism is all about community and food. I live in an ecological co-housing community, and before the pandemic would make Shabbat with fellow community members, most of whom don't have any Jewish connections. Whenever I travel, I make a challah and share it with whoever's around, including on a tall ship full of musicians off the remote Hebridean island of Barra, with a Palestinian and 3 Russians at the Yiddish Summer Weimar Klezmer Festival in Germany, or on a goat farm in Cape Clear Island off the south coast of Ireland. As well as being the Secretary of Lancaster and Lakes Jewish Community, I'm chair of our local City Council run Communities Together group, and I was Projects and Outreach Manager for the Scottish Council of Jewish Communities for 9 years, up to when I retired 2 years ago. I've got a PhD from the Scottish Oral History Centre at Strathclyde University. It was a study of transmission of Scottish and Jewish culture and identity through 5 generations of one family, and the book of the PhD was published by the Scottish Jewish Archive Centre. I have a famous artist auntie, the Glasgow Jewish artist Hannah Frank, who died at the age of 100 in 2008, and I manage a website, sell her prints and sculptures, and organise exhibitions for her. I'm a klezmer dance caller, calling at weddings and bar and bat mitzvahs and other events all over the country. I'm also on the Kles North Festival organising committee. I'm interested in climate justice, and I'm also a Zoom expert, and I link those two things by helping to lead Zoom teams for international climate conferences over the last 2 years. I also managed and trained the Zoom teams for Limud Tour of Britain in 2020, and was part of a team training the Scottish Jewish community in putting on hybrid events. Dom Phillips, the environmental journalist who was murdered in the Brazilian Amazon in June, along with Bruno Pereira, while researching sustainable solutions to the rainforest, was the brother of Sian Phillips, who's a very active Lancaster musician who's taught klezmer music to many people, Jewish and non-Jewish here, and plays at our Holocaust memorial events. To support her, I've been organising a month of events in Lancaster, bringing the Amazon to the attention of local people with an exhibition, a conference, talks, arts activities and more. I can offer the board Zoom expertise, klezmer dance schooling, creative event programming and an interest in climate work and social justice.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can people hear me in person and over the Zoom feed?
Hear you loud and clear. I hope you can be heard.
Fantastic. My name is Daniel J. Levy, and I am an under 35 observer for the Armed Forces Jewish community. I'm also a Lance Corporal in the Army Reserve and I'm approaching 7 years of service this coming February, working with our Deputy, Louis Trupp, who I believe many of you know, and fellow observer, Flight Lieutenant Sam Hilsrath of the Royal Air Force. We represent the small but dynamic Jewish community within His Majesty's forces, as well as cadet force instructors. The Anglo-Jewish community has a proud history of unbroken service to the Crown dating back to the 18th century, with British Jews having participated in all recent conflicts, including the Falklands War, Northern Ireland, Iraq, the Balkans, and Mali. Thousands of Jews made the ultimate sacrifice for the king and country during both world wars, with the most recent Jewish war fatality being Lieutenant Paul Mervis, who sadly fell in Afghanistan during the summer of 2009. The Armed Forces Jewish community supports and facilitates Jewish life in the Royal Navy, British Army, and Royal Air Force, be it ensuring that Jewish troops have access to kosher food, rabbinic leadership, and a peer support network. The AFJC is a vibrant organisation which has hugely enriched my time spent as a reservist. We estimate that approximately 100 to 150 Jews are currently in uniform. Within the Board of Deputies, our priority is ensuring that Jewish troops' needs are properly understood and met by the wider community, primarily working within the Communities and Education Division. Our recent area of focus have included promoting the Armed Forces Covenant within communal organisations, making synagogue membership more accessible for those stationed far from established communities, and raising awareness of what we do in schools and synagogues. Around the Remembrance season, we visited close to 20 synagogues in uniform, while Louis Trupp has worked with the Haredi community to build bridges across the whole spectrum of Jews in the country. We continue to work closely with AJEX, supporting their outreach work and the annual parade. We are keen to promote who we are and what we do, and I'd welcome any questions deputies, observers, and members of the public have. I'd also like to thank Rob Sassoon, Marilyn Keane, and Jerry Lewis for their work in establishing the new Speakers Programme and Under 35 Observer Scheme. Jerry's scheme has enabled me to meaningfully engage with the board deputies while still deciding whether or not I would like to become a deputy, which I'm most grateful for. It is my hope that collectively we seek to build on his important legacy and do everything we can to continue making the board more accessible to our community's future and younger leaders. I thank you for your time and attention and look forward to continuing this conversation offline.
Thank you, and thank you for everything that you do, Daniel. It's very, very appreciated. Thank you. Jerry Lewis wants to make a point of order, so I can't go on to the announcements yet. So I think the best thing is to let Jerry Lewis make his point of point of order, and then I will hear the point of order, and we'll deal with it. So thank you all for your forbearance. Jerry, would you like to make your point of order, please?
Mary Lewis, Hampstead Synagogue, very briefly. I endorse the gentleman over on the side there. I missed your name, I'm sorry.
James.
Who made the very valid point that the constitution change is needed to change any of our procedures. Madam President, it is your duty as president of this board to adjudicate whether a point of order is valid or not. You cannot abdicate that. You cannot pass it on to any third party, and it delays the procedure. The Board of Deputies standing orders are very specific. A point of order is going to be dealt with promptly. That means you have to decide not to defer it. I sent a message to Mr. Leifer. He wasn't even in the room when I sent the message, so he couldn't have read it. I raised that with you as you went out for a comfort break. We can't have delays to points of order if you can't decide them there and then. You are entitled, Madam President, to consult, but that's your duty to hear it. You never see the Speaker of the House of Commons saying, oh, I've got to refer it to somebody else, Joe Bloggs, another MP, to decide whether it's a point of order. Your job, and you're a lawyer, you're trained to do the job, is to decide, is it valid or not? Does it issue something about procedure, or is it something about a complaint that somebody's been under attack? Very simple. And if you don't like it, then you should ask somebody else to chair the session of the board who can decide these things. With all due respect, Madam President, I'm sorry to take such a tone, but this change cannot be allowed to take place. And whilst I'm on my feet, could I just raise one simple question? If deputies want to make a point to any of the division chairs or to you, Madam President, they've got at the moment 1.5 minutes. New deputies who are welcome, and it's a marvellous procedure for giving them 2.5 minutes, but there should be some recognition that deputies have enough time to make their points in questions to you and to the division chairs. Thank you.
Jerry's right that it's up to me to rule, and I should be doing swiftly. So I'll do as asked. I'll be very swift. It's my judgment that a protocol or a process is not a change in the Constitution. Jerry's right. I am a lawyer, and it's not a constitutional change. According to the Constitution, I'm able to run the meeting. It's my job to run the meetings properly, and I really want to try and hear from everybody, whatever their views are. It's my job to get people heard, and taking up time for points of order is difficult. And also I have to run a meeting in the room with people online. Things are going wrong, answering questions. It's an awful lot, and it's good to have help. So it's very good if there is a point of order, if that can be sent as in the protocol. And I want to just assure Jerry, I certainly won't be letting Tony Leifer make any decisions about any of the points of orders, but I'll make it myself. I've got no hesitation in making my point of order. I'm not even consulting you about it. It's not a change in the Constitution. It's a process. If it doesn't work, we can look at it again, but the aim of it is that meetings can carry on. We don't have to stop. We've got important business. We don't come together that often. And I just want everybody to be able to be heard. Everybody matters. You matter, Jerry, as well. So that is my judgment. It's not a change to the Constitution. It's a process in relation to the running of the meeting. And I assure you again, where there is a point of order to be decided, Mr. Leifer's not going to be deciding it. I may ask his advice or his opinion, but I will be making the decision just as I'm making it now, and I've not gone over there. So thank you for your point of order. Thank you for your claps, deputies. Thank you. Can we now go on to some announcements? Let's have some good announcements. It's always good to hear. John T. Bromfeld, are you there? Or you should be on Zoom. John T, are you there? And I know that Rosalind Lewis has just sent me an email saying, am I coming on for my announcement? So I hope you hear this because you're all coming on soon, I hope. John T.
Hi, I'm here.
Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is John T, and I'm the deputy for the Liberal Jewish Synagogue in St John's Wood. If the adage is true, then 1 in every million is LGBTQ+. In this light, I'd welcome all deputies who identify as LGBTQ+ to join the new focus group. Much has improved for LGBTQ Jews in the UK. Reform, Masorti and Liberal Judaism have commitments to LGBTQ Jews in the form of ordinations and specific Pride Shabbat services. In the UK, a publication by Chief Rabbi Ephraim Mervis with Keshet UK emphasised that the welfare of LGBTQ students could not be neglected. There's still much more to be done. Many LGBTQ Jews are still unable to engage in their Jewish communities, experiencing coldness, abuse, or social ostracization. I think we can all agree this is saddening. As our diverse Jewish communities consider how to include and support LGBTQ+ Jews, the board must have an active supporting role. This is the context of the group. The board's support of LGBTQ deputies and Jews will look different in each community. For the working group to succeed, I believe the group's constituent deputies and observers should reflect the mosaic of Jewish British Jewry. So if you identify as an LGBTQ Jew and are interested in joining in any capacity, then please email Lauren Keelis, and hopefully we should start some meetings either this year or early next year. Thank you for taking time to listen.
On Zoom. So Judith, could you speak
That's
first,
fine.
please?
Can you put the time, is it possible to put the time clock so I don't
Clock
over?
should be on, I agree with you.
No, I can put
It's
it on
important.
myself.
Is
If you
the
just
clock
bear
on?
with me 1 second. No.
There we go.
I'll do it.
Right. Right, okay, right, I've actually only got 2 minutes, there you go. Good afternoon. The weekend of January the 20th and 21st, so I hope that after this plenary, it will go in your diary or wherever, is Mental Health Awareness Shabbat. And this is an opportunity to focus on mental health and well-being. And this year it is communities. I'm going to briefly talk about Jamie Shabbat. This is the Jewish Association of Mental Illness. It's based in London, but it's been providing a lot of online support. And Tessa Arnold, who is one of the BO deputies, is one of the trustees. Shortly, Jamie will be sending out information to communities to support this Shabbat. This will include in-person and online events, a toolkit, 5 ways to well-being, and how to gain access to a speaker. And I understand from talking to Jamie that they have a link with a person from most schools. So if you're able to find out who your link is, that would be very helpful. They are also going to support you in providing speakers. So for example, in Muswell Hill, we've got a monthly Shabbat, Friday Shabbat, and we're going to organise to have a speaker. You will have lots of things in your structures that you can implement. I also want to mention about the toolkit, 5 Ways to Wellbeing, which was in the package last year. This was organised by Good Thinking and also many other organisations, including Maccabee and also Jewish London Forum. And Andrew Gilbert's done a lot of work to coordinate that. So thank you, Andrew. It's absolutely brilliant. And if you look at it, great little activities, how to help your well-being. I also want to mention there's lots of other things going on in relation to mental health all over the UK. And in particular, I want to flag up about JAM, which is based in Manchester. Johnny Weinberg has recently managed to get an amazing bid, over 93,000 of government funding to boost mental health and food support. Brilliant. And he's also worked with lots of faiths. So finally, I hope you haven't forgotten the date. January the 20th, 21st, activities around it after it. So please, please, can you do your best? And I just want to add, Marie, thank you for organising today, everybody. It's been brilliant seeing everybody, and that's a great start to well-being. So thank you. I just want to say thank you very much.
Carmel online.
Hi there.
Hello there.
Hi, thanks so much for letting me join. Hi, Michael Uyghur. It's nice to see you. So I work at Jewish Women's Aid. I'm running their outreach and prevention work. And this coming weekend, which is the 2nd and 3rd of December, is Jewish Women's Aid Shabbat. So you're about to have a really similar message from the previous one. So what is Jewish Women's Aid Shabbat? It's the annual cross-communal Shabbat where we aim to open up conversations around domestic abuse in our community and provide everybody, whether they're in shul or at home, with an opportunity to learn. So if you would like to take part, you can visit our website, and really you can't miss it. If you go to the homepage of our website, you will see something that says Community Toolkit, and if you click on that, you can print out a ready-to-read short speech, which can also act as an article, so you can read that out in your shul or around the Shabbat table if it's appropriate. And there's also a domestic abuse leaflet. We have done a print of the leaflet, and we have posted it to 163 shuls. We're officially supported by the Board of Deputies, the JLC, Office of the Chief Rabbi, United Synagogue, Reform, Liberal, Masorti, and Sephardi and Portuguese community. So any shul under the auspices of those shul organisations will get printed copies delivered. So if you're a deputy for any of those communities, please make sure that the leaflets are placed where congregants can see them this coming Shabbat. If you're not affiliated with any of those shul bodies, please, you can contact us and we will try to post them. We just can't, we just haven't had the capacity to include every single shul with the mail out. So you can contact us, or you can print it directly from the website. If you have any questions about the Shabbat, you can contact me at Jewish Women's Aid. You can email carmel@jwa.org.uk and I'll answer any questions. Thank you very much for your support, Board of Deputies, as well, for helping us every year with this.
I'm here. I'm here. Thank you, Madam President. Rosalind Lewis, Kingston, Surbiton and District Synagogue. And thank you particularly for saying that remembrance was such a special mitzvah. I trust by now all delegates are aware of the Legacy Board initiative and how important it is to remember the Shoah. I have met Jewish people who've not even heard of the Spanish Inquisition. Can you believe it? In time, this could happen to the Shoah, and it wouldn't take 500 years. We want you to commemorate the Shoah every year in the same way as we continue to commemorate Holocaust and Holocaust education. Most of you, or many of you, may have received boards by now. We want you to use your legacy boards, especially on Holocaust Remembrance Day and on Yom HaShoah. Have it displayed prominently in your shul or organization if you can, and perhaps dedicate it to a survivor from where you live or your organization. If you have school visits, make a point of explaining the purpose of the board. And if you have guests in the synagogue, Jewish or non-Jewish, point out the Shoah board and what it means. I shall be getting in touch with you in time and hopefully discussing what you can do. We want you to all make a point when you put it up of taking photographs and making it a special event. Thank you.
Thank you. And that is very, very important work. I absolutely agree that remembrance is a mitzvah. And when I was very recently in New York, I was taken to the American historical records, where the records are kept, 7 floors of records. And I found out for the first time they had records of the Inquisition in Mexico. And I wasn't actually aware that there had been a Mexican Inquisition. But thank you for all you're doing. Can we come on to the vote? The board is a democracy, so all of your votes matter. And we know that for anything to get through the board systems, it has to reach 66%, which is a very high threshold. And we had seen that before, obviously, in the past, when we wanted to have various constitutional changes. Can I start off by saying that the Save a Child's Heart UK does do excellent work, and helping any child has got to be commended. It really has. Unfortunately for the organisation, they didn't reach the 66% threshold. 57 were for and 34 were against. So it didn't, I'm told it hasn't reached the 61%. It's 61%. It probably is a fraction, which will work out to you the precise fraction, but we're clear that it's not going to be enough. So we are sorry that they will not be admitted to the board, and we want to thank the organisation for wanting to become a member. I'm sorry it was a difficult meeting because of the sound here, and we're going to make sure in the future that we are somewhere where we can have hybrid meetings, that we can trust that it's going to work. Thank you for your good nature. I'm glad we were able to find solutions, and it was really a fantastic opportunity to be together. And we will be writing to you shortly to let you know the events that we want to hold next year at the new offices in London Wall. So we want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for coming. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for your view.